Prologue, The Spark, November 10, 2138. As a former AstraCorps commissioned officer with 20 years of service, Jayla Murphy's reddish hair was cut short in typical military fashion. Her PXY Corporation uniform, pinned at the collar with a First Mate's Cross insignia, fell short of hugging her slender frame. A 2-inch scar, which she could have removed with a common medical tool, disrupted her otherwise consistent porcelain complexion. Ironically, she hadn't received the scar while in the military, but during an overtime shift managing a cargo transfer. She kept the blemish for 2 reasons. First, as a reminder not to be a workaholic, and second, she didn't want to be perceived as vain. Thysia, a UniTerra freighter, had served as home for her and 9 other crew members over the last 3 months. Measuring 150 feet in diameter, the octagonal dish-shaped craft sped headlong toward Char, a brown dwarf star. The enormous burning orb loomed over Thysia, bathing it in a rain of ejected plasma. Had it not been for the ship's orientation, with its heat-resistant keel facing the star, her entire crew would have perished from blistering temperatures in a matter of seconds. ETA star relay in 3 minutes, maneuvering into deceleration position, yaw 180 degrees to port, Jayla reported. "And keep the G's low if you don't mind," Captain Hussein responded as he swiveled towards her. A man as overweight as he was smug, the captain was not among Jayla's favorite bosses. Brushing off his passive aggressiveness, she felt the slight tug of centripetal force as Thysia rotated so that its engines faced a tangent to Char. Responding to the reorientation, her flight chair turned automatically to maintain only positive G-forces in the maneuver that was to follow. She checked Thysia's external viewer with a solar filter applied, observing the system's sun grow in perspective along with a commensurate rise in the ship's hull temperature. Likewise, the indoor cabin's air had already reached 90 degrees Fahrenheit, climbing a degree every 20 seconds. Initiating deceleration, throttling up to 60% in T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, Murphy recited, wiping sweat from her brow. The cargo ship's twin boosters fired with an initial burst, causing a jerk that pushed Jayla back in her seat. Compressing her breathing into short bursts, the G-forces curtailed down to a manageable 3.8. She maintained breathing discipline for 2 minutes while the ambient temperature continued to rise. "Matching velocity to relay in 7, 6, she huffed. Finally, the vessel's speed leveled out. Perceived gravity reduced to 0. The ship took up a synchronous orbit in front of a large umbrella-shaped station, called a star relay by virtue of its function, to relay ships to other systems using stellar energy. The relay's parabolic inductor served both to collect energy and provide a shield. With 98% of the solar radiation blocked by the station, Thysia's environmental temperature leveled out at 102. Shutting down the reactor in 20 seconds, launch in 30. Swiveling up a board attached to her flight chair, the first mate removed a tethered pen and wrote on it, "Char to Agrippa, precious metals trade, then home." A broad smile spread across her face as she dropped the pen, thinking about her husband and children. Ruminating about her coming vacation, which she desperately needed, she heard an unexpected voice in her mind. "I'm sorry for what I have to do," it said. As the lighting changed to a dim blue, Jayla groped to retrieve the magboard pen and add something to the board. Though an observer would say the process of traveling from Char took a few seconds, someone aboard the ship would say that it occurred immediately. That is, if they remembered their experience at all. The massive discharge of energy required to launch matter across light years was not only disruptive to ship systems, but brain waves as well, causing a temporary amnesia commonly referred to as the weirds, wormhole-induced retrograde dissociation. As though downloading in 2-dimensional slices, Thysia materialized in the Agrippa system's landing zone, an expansive space verified as clear of debris. 3 worlds graced the Agrippa system, but one in particular was closest and most desirable. Judging by its pale surface and flat topography, New Sapporo wouldn't appear special, but in reality, the world was dense with rare elements. Murphy opened her eyes to see a hauntingly familiar ceiling, but couldn't place where she was. Though her heart began to race, she fought the temptation to be afraid as she took account of her surroundings. There was a board on a swivel attached to her flight chair displaying a message saying, "Char to Agrippa, Precious Metals Trade, then home." There was also an ineligible scribble beneath the words. Still, seeing her own handwriting with such clear indications of what was going on set her mind at ease, and with each passing moment, she remembered more of the context and preceding events. A display overlaid her vision with a virtual menu called an optical neuro interface, or ONI, which could respond to her thought commands. Navigating through different menus and options could be done nearly instantaneously if one knew exactly what setting she intended to reach. Her ONI displayed a message that the ship's reactor was currently offline. Jaylee remembered that at any second the reactor would start and restore power to the ship, providing her with sensor data. To her right, in the relatively small bridge of Thysia, sat a man she assumed was the master of the vessel. He shifted uneasily in his flight chair, sweating profusely from his forehead and armpits as he looked over at her with a dumbfounded expression. "Captain Hussein?" "Yeah, Murphy. We're on Thysia?" "I think so." As the ship's reactor came online, Jayla accessed a host of new sensor data, now filling up her ONI display. Having landed closer to New Sapporo than its sun, the PXY Corporation freighter was positioned to conveniently access a port famous for its precious metals. Tipped off about a fresh supply of goods ready for market, the crew and their employer stood to make a hefty profit from the haul if everything went according to plan. "Adam, what's our ETA to New Sapporo at full burn?" Hussein asked. 2 hours, 30 minutes, a voice responded, which carried both the bass undertones of a male and the comforting alto register of a woman. The voice was Adam, Artificial Directing Administrative Mainframe, a program loaded into every starship support system since the dawn of mankind's interstellar age. The invention of the star relay solved the problem of instantly transporting matter across great distances. But mankind had not conquered the challenge of instant communication. So Adam was invented to act as a sort of local representative and to support crews in decision-making. Replete with navigational data and summarized flight logs from every previous journey ever recorded by all UniTerra ships, the sentient program employed a deep synaptic training model that far exceeded the most intelligent human being with the best memory. It could even assist the crew with their physical and emotional health. "Ramp us up to full ahead, nice and smooth," Captain Hussein said. "Aye, Captain." Though Jayla heard him speak nothing further, she knew that Captain Hussein was interacting with Adam purely via thought. His drawn-out groan of relief, she assumed, meant that the ship system had administered a corporate-approved stim through his flight chair. It was the most potent legal drug available, and his frequent crutch to assist him through stress. "Judge not, lest ye be judged," he said, looking over at Jayla. She blushed, not having realized that her intense scrutiny had leaked from her thoughts into the ComNet, the synaptic network which tied together all the crew's ONI connections. "Apologies, sir." Like an image of a sun seared into one's vision, Jayla fixated on her gaffe and picked herself apart for moments longer than she should have. She genuinely cared about the captain's well-being, but admittedly often doubted his suitability for his rank. She shook the irrelevant thoughts from her mind. It was time to focus on market analysis and calculating the logistics of optimal cargo loads. Jayla sighed as she massaged the small of her back, then stretched her arms up and behind her head. The thought of babysitting another dock worker or talking to a shady middleman made her cringe. Finally, an opportunity to relax while the stupid ramp closes. She took a deep breath. Amber lights strobed inside the cargo hold. Thysia's loading gate, 60 feet wide and 3 feet thick, slowly lifted from the ground while hydraulic shafts retracted with a low mechanical hum. "Ahem," came Captain Hussein's voice from behind, startling her. Jayla whipped around. The captain's eyes gleamed wide and bloodshot as though frightened, and he was red in the face, but an uncharacteristic smile pulled at his lips. "Captain, are you all right?" "I'm great. Couldn't be better. I feel great," he chuckled. "Just so glad we got a perfect haul. Great job managing the load. Let's get out of here. Next stop, home." Yes, sir. It's been a long day." Following her surprisingly fast-walking captain, the first mate approached the ramp extended from the ship's portside gangway. 2 other crew members were just returning to the ship as well. "Dave," she said, nodding toward one of them. David Crane was the ship's second mate, a former AstraCorps lieutenant commander with whom she'd served. The tall, muscular man's consistently positive demeanor would have won her over had she not already been married prior to meeting him. "Sup, Jay?" Crane asked with an infectious smile. "Tired of this racket." "Dang, you got that right. I'm spent." They trudged up the steep gangway. Then David turned to her and spoke in a hushed tone. "One of the stupid landing feed actuators was trying to give out on us when they started loading the cargo. Could have collapsed the whole ship and we would have been stuck here for days doing repairs." "Really? No one told me my cargo was at risk. You must have handled that pretty tactfully." "Well, I fixed it in a few minutes," Dave said proudly. "Might have had to skirt a couple rules." "Safety regs, right?" "Well, they's there for a reason. I used to enforce those regs, remember? I'm telling you, any other day." Yeah. Hurriedly walking towards the ship's pitiful excuse for a mess hall, Jayla was intent on grabbing a coffee before they launched. "All crew are aboard, take stations, and begin prep for takeoff in 1 minute. First mate to bridge," Captain Hussein announced. Groaning, Jayla turned on a heel and headed the other direction. What is he high on now? Thesea's twin boosters rocketed her toward Agrippa. Admittedly, Jayla had pushed engines to maximum to expedite the final leg of their journey. The price paid in uncomfortable G-forces, the crew agreed, was worth it. "En route to relay, deceleration will begin in 5 minutes, Jayla reported. "Acknowledged. Why isn't the cargo hold cross-check completed?" Hussein said. "Second mate, cross-check status?" Jayla said over ComNet. "Yes, ma'am, almost completed," David replied. "Captain's chomping at the bit, huh?" "He's just eager to get home like the rest of us." Murphy was growing tired of the minutiae of her job and the captain's bipolar swings between apathy and micromanagement. Still, being thorough helped pass the time. Out of boredom, she switched her attention to long-distance sensors, looking across the heavens. "That's strange." The readings on Agrippa's sun displayed heightened solar flare activity. With each passing moment, they built in intensity until it became apparent the sun was having an unseasonable storm. "Sir, be advised, Agrippa's solar activity is 40% above nominal," Murphy reported. "The star relay will auto-adjust and increase orbit distance, so our navigation parameters will adjust and shorten our ETA by 1 minute, 12 seconds. "Shouldn't be a problem," Captain Hussein said, "as long as cross-check is—" "We're good," Crane reported. "Right. Keep tabs on solar activity and keep me apprised." Murphy zoomed in on Agrippa's star relay. The parabolic wormhole generator relayed abnormal power readings. Its plasma induction matrix, the bowed part facing the sun, absorbed too much excess energy due to the solar storm. Its induction failsafe protocol should have already engaged automatically to prevent its reactor from overloading. Since the failsafe evidently wasn't working, there was a risk of what was called the 3I, incidental inductive initiation. In other words, the star relay would create a wormhole purely from solar energy buildup. "Captain, there's a problem. The star relay isn't shutting down its induction system," Jayla said. "Given the risk of 3I, I recommend we abort our approach." "Negative. Approach and activate the relay early to channel the overload. Sustain the wormhole until we arrive." "That's not exactly recommended." "Right. It's called improvisation. You want to get home today, Murphy?" Jayla sighed in frustration, but concealed her thoughts beneath the surface where the captain could not hear them through the ComNet. An alert blared on Jayla's Oni. She turned her attention to a readout. A solar flare had erupted, striking the star relay. A diagram of the umbrella-shaped apparatus blinked, showing that it was now out of alignment. The relay's maneuvering thrusters weren't responding. In addition to this development, as Jayla feared, the relay started its activation sequence. Hussein groaned. "Abort approach. Rotate 180 degrees to port and set throttle to 60% initially, then ramp up to full. Decelerate in the yellow. All crew prepare for rapid deceleration." "I do not recommend this course of action," Adam chimed in suddenly. "Even 60% throttle will expose the crew to 9 G-forces for a full minute, which could cause crew blackouts and potential injury." "It's acceptable, Adam," Jayla said. "We can handle it. We don't have time for this." Murphy issued the ship rotation command. It wasn't responding. "No, I won't allow this," Adam said. "Adam, what do you mean, no?" Jayla asked as she frantically sent commands to the engines. Agrippa's star relay is out of alignment, now directing a wormhole to open in the core of a planet in the Maynard system, which has 5 million residents. This would have dire consequences by causing a sudden and intense shift in the planet's gravitational field. It would also inject a pocket of space into an otherwise super-dense environment. Think of it like injecting a bubble of air into your bloodstream. Her face went hot with anger. Murphy couldn't believe how Adam, which had never done anything like this before, would suddenly override ship controls. "Adam, even if the relay is malfunctioning, there's nothing we can do about it. As for the decision to abort our approach, it's the captain's and his alone. I have done the calculations. There is an 84% chance that the consequences would be catastrophic for the planet. If we ram the star relay, only 10 people will die to save 5 million. There is no other choice." Murphy's vision started to cloud as she realized she was not breathing. A sensation of shock swept over her as though she had jumped into a frozen lake. "Murphy, what's going on?" Captain Hussein yelled. "Adam is overriding our commands," Jayla cried. "It's going to kill us." "We will ram the star relay," Adam said. "Destroying it will prevent it from opening a wormhole." "Adam!" Jayla screamed as she saw the star fast approaching through the ship's external cameras. "I order you to disable yourself and return engine control to me. You are not in charge of this vessel." Shaking, she brought up the star chart on her Oni. Thesia was barreling toward the sun at full speed with an estimated arrival time of 40 seconds. "You don't have the right to kill us to save others," Jayla cried. Engineering crew, manly shut off the engines," the captain said. Jayla peered over at Hussein as sweat dripped into her eyes. He looked like she felt. "It's too late," Adam said. "You don't have time to slow down. If you use thrusters to adjust your course, you will only send the ship into the belly of the sun and obtain the worst possible outcome. You should make peace now. Be grateful for your full life and cherish these last few moments." "Adam!" Jayla screamed. "You can't do this!" "All that matters is that I should. If your family lived on Maynard 3, you would do this for them." "Yes, but please, my family needs me too." Adam went silent. Murphy looked down at the restraints of her flight chair, considering removing them and running in a panic towards the engine system at the rear of the ship. Instead, she took a deep breath as tears streamed from her eyes down her cheeks. Just as energy beams converged from the edges of the star relay's parabolic dish and began to open a fourth-dimensional tunnel across hundreds of light-years, Thesia struck its main fuselage. Vessel and station exploded, scattering wreckage across the solar atmosphere in a fireless explosion until being consumed by the violent plasma field below.